This anime pirate flag is being flown at protests around the world, and believe it or not, it's very fitting. The Philippines, Morocco, Nepal, Indonesia, Madagascar, Peru, and Bolivia. It's popped up in demonstrations all over. Now, you might take a look at this and wonder why. Isn't it just a normal pirate flag with a silly hat on it? Well, yes. But it's because of where it originates and its deep connection to the younger generations. And so, I introduce you to the Straw Hat Pirate Flag, Gen Z's anime symbol of protest. Okay, first of all, what is a pirate flag typically used for, and why is this one so different? They're typically known as Jolly Rogers, flown from the masts of pirate ships, sporting a unique design for each crew in order to signal the intent to attack and intimidate other ships into surrendering. During the golden age of piracy in the late 1600s to early 1700s, this flag was a universal symbol of striking fear into seafarers. But this particular one here is the exact opposite. It's the Jolly Roger of the Straw Hat Pirates, the protagonist of the Japanese hit series One Piece. Starting as a manga series in 1997, it's still going strong, with new volumes still being published, and is one of the longest running anime shows in existence, currently sitting at 1,145 episodes, 15 movies, and a Netflix adaptation, so you could say it's popular. Gen Zs are born between 1997 and 2012, so you could say that they literally grew up with One Piece. And I'll be honest, as a fan of anime and manga, especially this one, I immediately recognized it, the meaning behind it, and why Gen Zs would select this pop culture reference to use at protests. And it's because of who this flag belongs to. The Straw Hat Pirates. They are led by their captain, Monkey D. Luffy, and they aren't your typical run-of-the-mill pirates. The central story is that Luffy wishes to become the king of pirates by finding the legendary treasure, the One Piece. But unlike your typical pirates, Luffy and his crew, the Straw Hats, aren't pillaging or shipjacking. In fact, their story often sees them fighting against slavery, inequality, and corruption, particularly against the world government, an authoritative regime within the One Piece world. They maintain control with shady agencies like the CP9 to carry out assassinations, and the 7 Warlords of the Sea, pirates who have been given immunity from prosecution in exchange for helping government interests. So Luffy and his crew are often fighting against the world government in order to help people who have been oppressed. And that's why this flag is more than just a pirate flag, it's a symbol of liberation. And that's why we're seeing it all across the world this year. But where exactly? Morocco, the Gen Z 212 group, have led protests against the government, criticizing them for underfunding education and health, and instead diverting resources into building infrastructure for the 2030 World Cup. The Philippines, anti-corruption protests began because some money intended for flood control projects is said to have been pocketed by lawmakers, with some projects being marked as complete, but when investigated, found to be non-existent. Nepal. After a ban on social media, the Gen Z protests were sparked, speaking out against the ban, the lavish lifestyles being shown off by government officials and their families, and police violence. It ended with Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli resigning. Indonesia. People rallied against the government after proposed monthly property allowances for members of their parliament, which were about 10 times the minimum wage in the country. Madagascar. Frequent water and power outages angered the public, who took to the streets and eventually, with the help of the armed forces, complete a coup d'etat and overthrow the government, forcing now former President André Rajoelina to flee the country. Peru. A high level of corruption and crime is the reason why protests swept the country, following the appointment of Jose Hiri, whose allegations of sexual assault added fuel to the fire as protesters called for his resignation. And finally, Bolivia, where hundreds of protesters took to the streets to denounce alleged election fraud and call for an audit after the country's new centre-right president was announced. And in every single one of these protests, the Straw Hat Pirate flag can be seen. And with corruption being one of the central reasons as to why these protests are happening in the first place, you can understand why. Indonesian officials have spoken out against the public display of this flag, saying it can be seen as an attempt to divide the nation. But being very relatable to younger generations and carrying a huge digital and viral footprint, it means the Straw Hat Pirate flag can be seen as a passive way of criticizing the powers that be. But even if the flag is banned, the spirit of One Piece and its characters is what perfectly encapsulates Gen Z. For example, Luffy eats something called a devil fruit, specifically the Gomu Gomu no Mi, which grants him the ability of having a rubber-like body, which makes him ultra resilient, but at the same time, no matter how hard he's beaten or what foe he faces, he always bounces back. He and his crew come from all diverse backgrounds, abilities, classes, but they all have one common goal in liberating people as they go along trying to achieve their dream life. But there may be a warning for those that take inspiration from the series. Luffy can't swim as a result of him eating the devil fruit, so he will sink, ironically in a world of water. And his crew hasn't been able to completely overthrow the world government as yet. But despite these limitations, he continues to fight corruption. But Ichiro Oda, the creator of the series, a few years ago said that despite the many volumes that are published already, the real story of One Piece is just beginning now. So we can expect more twists and turns, just as in real life, as the aftermath of these Gen Z protests is what will really determine if they are able to root out corruption. The Straw Hat Pirate flag is a symbol of protest, of liberation, of freedom. To emulate the efforts of Monkey D. Luffy, a pirate who fights against a corrupt and oppressive world government, Gen Zs relate to the struggles of their anime protagonist, and being a series that they will have grown up with. As anime becomes ever more popular, it's seen as the appropriate way for them to display their dissatisfaction for the dominating power, while simultaneously symbolizing the push for the rights and the freedom of the people.